I truly believe that pretty much any cyclist, regardless of whatever age or weight challenges they may be facing, can get themselves up pretty much any climb. Obviously, the main deciding factor in getting up that climb is how fast you're going to do it. But note here that I never said climbing was ever going to be easy. And that's because it doesn't matter whether you're light or heavy, old or young, fit or perhaps not quite so fit, you're going to want to get yourself up that climb as fast as possible, and that's always going to be hard. Now, when it comes to climbing, there are three huge mistakes that you really do not want to make, and each of them are equally as important as the other. If you make even one of these mistakes, then you can pretty much guarantee that you will not get to the top. The first really huge mistake that any cyclist can make when it comes to climbing is believing that they cannot get to the top of a particular climb. Now, every single cyclist, as long as you don't live in a completely flat area, has climbs with massive reputations that can be a little bit intimidating. For me personally, here in Hampshire, we have things like Old Winchester Hill, Speltham Hill, and of course Harvesting Lane. Each of these climbs are pretty tough, and Harvesting Lane in particular is quite long and very, very intimidating. But if you approach climbs like that with the attitude that you'll never get up, then yeah, you probably won't get up. Believing in yourself is absolutely crucial, not just for climbing, but for life in general. I seem to remember a quote that goes something like, if you think you can or you can't, then you're right. And I always attribute this to Stewie Griffin from Family Guy, although I'm sure somebody with a lot more gravitas said it originally. If you think you can't do something, then you pretty much guarantee it to yourself that you won't be able to do it. And while the opposite may not always be true, you at least give yourself a fighting chance of success. The second huge mistake that you really do not want to make when you're climbing is choosing the wrong gear. Now, I talk a lot about cadence on this channel, and in fact, for me, it's one of my most important metrics. And it doesn't matter if I'm riding on the flat, or I'm climbing, or sometimes even descending, I like to hold what I call my home cadence. And for me personally, that's 90 revs per minute. Now, that's going to be a little bit different for different people. So the way you find that yours out is you basically ride along a flat road in a comfortable gear at a kind of pedaling rate that you feel comfortable with. And whatever your cycling computer says, that is your home cadence. Now, when you're going along on the flat, that's all fine and dandy, but when you start climbing, obviously it starts to get a little bit harder to pedal, and you need to regulate that by changing down a gear. Now, when you're climbing, maintaining your home cadence gives you that kind of rhythm, and you can just kind of settle into it, and hopefully that will get you up the climb. You're not expending any more energy in theory than you would do had you been riding along that completely flat road. Now, unfortunately, if you are a little bit on the heavy side, the gravity will start taking over even more, and it will become really, really hard to pedal depending on the gradient. And sometimes you run out of gears, and all you can do then is just kind of grit your teeth and get yourself up the climb. Very often though, cadence isn't just about how fast you're pedaling. It can also have a big influence on your breathing. And that's the other really important rhythm of your ride. If you can't expel the carbon dioxide that's building up in your body, again, the climb becomes very hard. So for me, cadence and breathing are very closely linked, and they work very closely together. You can match your breathing with your cadence quite well. So again, that's another really important reason why you need to choose the correct gear while you're climbing. The third really huge mistake that you can make while climbing is not pacing yourself correctly. Now, every single one of us only has a finite amount of energy within us, and we can burn through that energy slowly, or we can burn through that energy fairly quickly. Imagine it a bit like this. Let's say you've got a candle that's 20 centimeters long, and you've got one of these sparkly firework things that's also 20 centimeters long. The 20 centimeters represents the amount of energy that you have in your body. Now, you can set light to the candle and it may burn with a dull flame for 2 hours, or you can set light to that sparkler and it will be all bright and dramatic but may only last about 20 seconds. And exactly the same is happening in your body. You can go off hard and fast and only do that for a short space of time, or you can do it slowly and steadily and do it for much longer. Obviously, the pace that you set for yourself and how quickly or how slowly you burn through your own personal energy reserves is going to depend very much on the nature of the climbing that you're going to be doing. And to give you some idea of how different climbs can be, I've just returned from cycling in France and Italy, where the climbs were very different. In France, for instance, the climbs were quite long, so between 13 and 15 kilometers, but the gradient wasn't so bad. Again, they were between 3 and 5%. Compare that to Italy, where the climbs were much shorter, so between 5 and 7 kilometers, but the gradient were a lot harder. And basically they didn't drop much below 7% all the way. Because the climbs in France were only between 3 and 5%, that meant that I had a lot more control over my gears and it was a lot easier for me to hold my home cadence. All I had to do then was just select a gear that felt comfortable and then maintain that 90 revs per minute and just tick my way up to the top. Compare that to Italy, where within 200 meters of starting the climb, I was already in my lowest gear. And then the only thing I could do was just slow my cadence right down so that I didn't go into oxygen debt. Unfortunately though, there may also be times when, even though you've not let yourself be intimidated by the climb, you've selected the right gears and you've paced yourself as best you can, that the climb still beats you and you've only managed to get a third of the way up, halfway up, or 3/4 of the way up, or whatever. Now, in that case, that is not a failure. The only failure would be to get off your bike and start pushing before you've even attempted the climb. What's happened in that instance is that you've set yourself a benchmark. You'll know without doubt that you can get to that same point without getting off the bike, and hopefully you've also set yourself a target for next time. Climbing, like most things in cycling, is a combination of natural ability, hard work and training. Unfortunately, we're not all blessed with that perfect lightweight climber's body frame, but we can help ourselves immensely by putting some hard work in with some extra training. And if you'd like to know a few mental techniques to get you up the climb, then click on the video just here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.